On tonight's episode of the Ellis Mark Show, special guest, Jimmy Neutron. Coming to you from Rockefeller Plaza, New York City, it's the Ellis Mark Show.
How's everyone doing tonight? Yeah. You know, I recently flew in from Albuquerque, and I'm like, what's the deal with airline food? Thank you. Tonight's show involves a very special guest. A genius kid with a robot dog and a habit of saving the world from sheer destruction. Wow, someone should put those lyrics into a theme song. Here he is, all the way from Retroville, James Isaac Neutron.
Pleasure to be here, Mark.
The pleasure's all mine, Jimmy. I can call you Jimmy, right? So come on, Jimmy, say the line. Come on, for me.
Anytime. Got a blast.
So, Jimmy, what's up with the voice?
Oh yeah, I mean you already know what it is. Things happen, new invention. I was trying out this. I hit myself with a puberty ray.
No, I mean before you sounded like. Did your voice change again?
What?
You know what? Never mind. So, Jimmy. James. You've been under a lot of heat recently. Of course, you broke out into the acting scene from a very young age. 10, I believe. You were the star of a movie that hit theaters in 2001. Massive success, by the way, congratulations. Which led to you getting your own toy line, clothing, video games, even a ride at Universal Studios. That's a lot of pressure for someone your age. And of course, that's not to mention your very own show on Nickelodeon that ran for 3 seasons with a total of 60 episodes. It's not too shabby. For a good few years, you were on top of the world, Jimmy, weren't you?
Yeah, I was.
But of course that fame slowly faded, didn't it? And by slowly, I mean unfortunately quickly. Due to the expensiveness of CGI for the time, you were continuously getting the shaft for other shows. All your peers continued to grow as you got left behind, only being able to wonder, what if? Even your best friend stole the spotlight, briefly getting his own spin-off series, Planet Sheen.
Sheen, do not get into this racket. JN. Jimmy Neutron! Someone named JN is putting all these notes in your lab!
Now, I have yet to see it, however, a lot of my friends really enjoyed the spin-off. Nowadays, your once respected IP merely exists through low-tier memes that have further sunken your reputation. That must suck, mustn't it? But that's not what I want to talk about today. Like I mentioned before, you've been under a lot of heat, Jimmy. With many making the claim that you're an egotistical, self-centered, annoying, selfish, pretentious, arrogant, malevolent, subhuman, and overall, just a very unlikable person.
Well, I've been working on myself and...
But you know, Jimmy, I've never really agreed with these wild accusations. So don't worry, I'm on your side. And I'd like to give my own thoughts and perspective on your character, to try understand better why people think you're so devoid of likability. I think by the end of our little show here, people are going to have a lot more appreciation for you. But first, ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to hear a word from today's sponsor. Psst, Jimmy, hold up the sign.
What?
The sign, Jimmy, you're supposed to hold up the crowd-made sign.
No, I wasn't. I don't think I'm legally allowed to.
God damn it, Jimmy! This was the one thing you're supposed to do. I fly you out here, book you a motel, and let you talk on my show to defend yourself, and here you are making a mockery of my craft. I'm trying to defend you here while running a professional business, yet here you are continuing to demean me on my own program. You know what? Just forget it. Go to commercial. Today's program is sponsored by... me. I got a neat little shop over at crowdmate.com that has just released a few brand new products. Like looky over here, we got a couple new phone cases. As well as that, the limited edition pins are selling out pretty quickly. So if you want to get one, I'd recommend picking it up soon, because after that we aren't making any more stock. So if you like what you see or even just want to help support the channel, head on over to crowdmate.com/lsmark. Or if you want to be an even bigger Chad, then check out my Patreon for when YouTube feels like demonetizing my videos over literally nothing. And with that, let's get back to the program. Jimmy, I don't even know anymore. Look, I'm sorry for lashing out. We'll have our stagehand send you a muffin basket. I didn't mean the stuff I said. It's just, there's some issues at home, and at that, the rest of the world is going down the toilet, and sometimes I wonder what's even the point of going on if all life is looking for little aspects of meaning and what else is just a pointless existence. It's a farce, Jimmy. It's just a farce. And we're back. Jimmy Neutron is a Nickelodeon show that aired its first episode in 2002. It starred, who else, Jimmy Neutron. a boy genius from the town of Retroville, going on adventures with the use of his many inventions, which usually end up going awry. This show was huge at the time. If not for its great humor and memorable characters, it was for the visuals that, while now look dated and pretty horrific, were groundbreaking for television when it aired. Now, the world of Jimmy Neutron has a wide variety of memorable characters, such as Carl Weezer, Sheen Estevez, Miss Fowl, and who could forget Nick Dean? The Nick Dean. Although he was never able to handle the Neutron style. But today I'd like to focus on our titular protagonist. Anytime I mention this show to someone, the response is always something like, "Oh yeah, I used to love that show." Jimmy was an asshole though. I could never understand this. Was Jimmy, my boy, actually the worst? Was he a puppy-kicking, woman-hating piece of trash? Now Jimmy, believe it or not, I didn't actually grow up watching your show. It didn't really air much over here in the UK. Most of my exposure to you came from the Nicktoons Unite games and the Jimmy Timmy Power Hours. So I recently watched through a majority of the series for the first time, so this is gonna come from a completely unbiased source.
I appreciate you taking time to watch the show. I hope everyone does so at home as well.
First of all, let's list some character traits of Jimmy. Well, obviously he's a genius, he makes that very apparent. I mean, it's in the title to the goddamn show. So I guess you could say he's a bit pompous. He hates Cindy, which has caused some people to label him as a sexist. Yes, really. And finally, I'd say Jimmy can be pretty short-sighted, meaning he doesn't really have much foresight when planning, which is usually the cause of most of his inventions getting out of control. I mean, Edison didn't have this problem with the light bulb, am I right, fellas? All of these factors grouped together probably sound like the traits of a pretty unlikable person. But I feel it's more important not to look at Jimmy solely, and take into consideration the world around him and how he's treated by others. It's easy to just look at Jimmy in a vacuum and go, "Yep, that's one unlikable kid right there, I tell you what." But let's see how Mr. Neutron is viewed by his peers. Now, despite being this extremely intelligent kid who owns rockets and gadgets and gizmos, Jimmy is still seen as nothing more than a big-headed nerd by his peers, especially Cindy Vortex. And I know what you might be thinking. Well, Jimmy constantly puts his town and the citizens in danger, of course they're not gonna like him. But I feel it's at least somewhat understandable since, 1. Jimmy has never put the town in danger intentionally or had any malicious intent with his stunts. And 2, I more so see this as Jimmy's attempt to overcompensate and prove people wrong. As an example, let's use one of Jimmy's most infamous screw-ups, with Season 2 Episode 16's Men at Work. In this episode, Jimmy, Carl, and Sheen need to make some money, so they go and get minimum wage jobs at a local fast food joint. When applying, Carl and Sheen are almost immediately accepted and welcomed to the McSpanky's family, while on the other hand Jimmy is judged by Skeet and given jobs that either demean him, or ones he assumes is too easy for Jimmy to screw up. So because of this, Jimmy attempts to make himself look like a better employee by going above and beyond with his appointed tasks, such as memorizing the menu prices to do the change calculations in his head, or indeed, pointing out to Skeet that there was just a little salt on the ground.
I think you mean sodium chloride.
Yes, thank you, Jimmy. What I'm trying to get at here is that half these scenarios wouldn't have happened if it weren't for Jimmy being put down for being different. He would have never had to modify McSpanky's if he were treated like a normal employee. He would have never needed to create speed shoes if Cindy didn't gloat so hard about beating him in a race. He would have never needed to take apart his little brother if his classmates didn't isolate him for being different. I'm not saying Jimmy is completely innocent in these scenarios, or hasn't messed up in his own accord, but to me Jimmy's traits of egotism and overcompensation only grew because of how he was treated by others. It's not entirely his fault. Now what you could say is entirely his fault is how he treats women. It's no secret that Jimmy sorta, kinda, maybe just a little bit, doesn't respect women. Or does he? A majority of the time when Jimmy is being a little douche to women, it's directed towards his classroom rival Cindy Vortex. He doesn't really have an issue with any other girls in the show. And yes, a case can be made for how he thinks all girls are dumber than boys. I think people have forgotten that despite being a genius, he's still just a 10-year-old boy. Have you met one before? They all act like that. And not to mention the very obvious fact that he and Cindy actually like each other. Something the show shoves down your throat at every given turn. And the cliche of the boy picking on a girl because he secretly likes her is an extremely common trope of the 2000s. I honestly don't see the point people are making when they say this. I'm not trying to make it seem like Jimmy is a perfect character who's done no wrong, but I just think this goes to show how great of a character he really is. He manages to act like an all-knowing super genius that still comes off like a genuine boy. He never acts like Carl or Sheen are burdens on him because he believes they have to have a very high IQ to understand Jimmy Neutron. He treats and respects them well despite knowing he's smarter, and the only times he acts otherwise is when he feels he needs to prove himself to those around him. And I feel like others with a better connection to him will be able to explain Jimmy's personality further.
Hi, LS Markets here. My buddy Jimmy has been slandered as he apparently is an unlikable protagonist to some. I can say this about Jimmy. He's got great hair, man. Excellent hair. But he has a heart of gold. He's a wonderful dancer. And with respect to him being an unlikable protagonist, well, I think that's probably kind of suggestive, don't you, LS Mark? I don't think he's unlikable. And who are these people who have been slandering my friend? Show yourselves, cowards! Ow, but not too close, because it hurts my scapula. Oh, and don't forget that before you watch the show again, and any of you decide to slander my buddy Jimmy by calling him an unlikable protagonist, don't forget to finish that croissant.
If you want to see a truly evil character, then look no further than Evil Jimmy. Or even go a step further beyond and look over to Jimmy Neutron.
In this other dimension is a boy named Jimmy Neutron.
Whoa, you can't say that on TV. I'm not saying you have to like Jimmy as a person or you're wrong for thinking the way you do. There are things to not like about James Isaac Neutron. His egotistical nature really can get the better of him at times. All I'm attempting to do with this is start a dialogue, so we can properly discuss this fictional character's ethics and morals. Because to me, the people who complain about Jimmy Neutron being an unlikable protagonist are the same kinds of people who think they're deep by applying philosophical ideologies into kids' shows. So, Jimmy, if you got anything you want to close out with? Got anything you want to plug? Biography or something?
I'm glad to have been on the show, but I must go hang out with Sheen and Carl. They reopened the candy bar.
Well, that was Jimmy Neutron. Thanks for watching and have a fantastic evening. Jimmy, I said you can go now.